This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Forging Table. The mission of Undaunted.Life is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. At the Forging Table, you'll see a group of regular guys forging spiritual resilience by digging into God's Word, and we're welcoming all of you to come along on that journey with us. That is Caleb, the smartest man alive. He got the timer to work, and Russ and Adam. And guys, today we're picking up where we left off in the narrative of Joseph by going into Genesis 41. So we're going to start in Genesis 41, verse 37, and yeah, let's do what we did last time, where it's like one guy reads, next guy reads, next guy reads. So Caleb, how about you start us out in verse 37, and then just go to the next chunk, which will be 46, Russ, and then we'll just go from there.
Got it. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this, in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride in his second chariot. And they called out before him, "Bow the knee." Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up a hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephanath Paneah, and he gave him in marriage Asenath, and daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt.
Go ahead, Russ.
All right. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years, the earth produced abundantly. And he gathered up all the food of these 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt, and put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it. And Joseph stored up grain in abundance, like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured.
Now before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, for he said, "God has made me forget all my troubles and all my father's household." He named the second Ephraim, for he said, "God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction."
And I'll just wrap it up. 41, the 7 years of plenty that occurred in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, and the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph. What he says you do." So when the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe over all the earth. So obviously just a spectacular turn of events for Joseph. At this point, he is completely assimilated into Egyptian culture. Takes an Egyptian wife, has Egyptian kids. Like, he's dressing like an Egyptian. For all intents and purposes, he's no longer a Hebrew. He is an Egyptian, even though he has the Hebrew roots. But the whole time I was reading through this, I just assumed at some point I was going to think of another historical thing that was like this, where like we know now, like somebody had prepared either for a famine or for a war or something like that. And I could not think of one, and I just thought one would just absolutely pop into my brain. So I don't know if that, I didn't set y'all up. I didn't tell you I was going to ask that, but was there anything else that kind of comes to mind? Because this is such a good story of patience, discernment, wisdom, trust. Pharaoh is, coming back, but go ahead.
What about Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai?
It has been a minute. I think every single episode we've had a little movie thing going on. So do tell, continue.
I don't know. I mean, he was captured, right?
Yeah.
During a war, correct?
Assimilated to Japanese samurai culture.
He becomes like this great warrior for them.
Mm-hmm.
The husband of the woman that they lived with is killed in battle, and then he ends up with her.
It's true.
That's a deep cut, but I think that fits. I was thinking more like something that actually happened, but you know what? We might as well keep the theme of IMDb going.
It just hit me while you were talking.
I hadn't even thought about that movie in a while. That's a good one. That's a banger.
I wish Jake was here because he's the history buff. So I don't have anything for you.
Last time he did trivia, he he lost. So I
Oh,
don't
really?
know.
You beat him?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, way to go.
I just smashed him to big, enormous pieces. But he is in pieces still. He is not recovered. But his next time, again, he's going to be on at Genesis, and I'm going to crush his favorite movie and his favorite movie trilogy, Lord of the Rings. I'm going to absolutely mollywop him.
Yeah.
Right? When's the last time you heard that?
It's pretty easy to do.
Mollywop him.
It's pretty easy.
This is a motif that is definitely used. So like it's crazy to see how much we see in film that is taken from the Bible on different things, but like this storyline of the preparation for the hard times to come and the preparation for next year's main event, whatever it be, a football game, whatever. Every story that you watch, like every Disney story, has this prep period where they go through the trial, and then all of a sudden they see the light, and then they have to do the prep to get to that point. So I just love the idea. I mean, like this is one of the best stories ever written.
For sure.
And it's not just a story; it's an actual event that happened, and we're getting to watch it unfold.
I got one. I got one that's probably better than this. Noah. What about Noah? Is
Yeah.
it not the same?
Yeah.
Impending calamity, build
Yeah.
a boat.
The
collect
ramifications were even more dire.
collect the food.
How long was he building the boat?
Bad thing.
Do you remember? Anyway, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, that's a good question. Build the boat, get all the food, get all the supplies, get everything together. All the animals come. Kind of same premise.
Well, same thing. Even same premise with Jesus. What does he say?
Sure.
I'm here to prepare the kingdom. The kingdom of the Lord is at hand. And he tells the disciples, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Like he's saying, this is the prep work. Get ready because we're about to harvest.
And I still keep going back to Joseph. The dude is just a gangster. Think about how many times we've talked about it where he gets thrown in a well and then he gets sold into slavery and then something about him. What is the it about Joseph that makes Potiphar immediately make him the ruler of his house? And then he gets thrown in prison. And what does it say? But the jailer makes him immediately in charge of all of the prisoners in the jail. How is that possible? And then here's Pharaoh. Pharaoh could say the word and this guy's head gets chopped off easily. And he just listens to one thing and he's immediately now second in command in Egypt with the snap of his fingers. Now, obviously God's hands on it for sure. Not to diminish that. But there's something about him that's different.
For sure.
Do you think that this points a little bit to the culture of the Egyptians at this time? That, I mean, you could say that it's relatable to our American culture right now, that not a lot of people want to do the hard work. So like you see him, especially whenever he interprets this dream, you would expect that Pharaoh's servants and all the people working with him would feel very threatened by this guy. Whenever he says, let me go find a guy that has these qualities that can do this, you would expect for them to jump in and be like, hey, I'll do it. Don't give this guy any more power. But it says that they were all favorable to it. Like they were like, oh man, he's good at this. Like they're just wanting somebody to do all the work for him. And every place he's been, he's had somebody that was like, oh, you'll do the work for me? Okay, that's good.
And I think part of it had to have been he's just undeniable. So there are people, music's probably the one thing that comes to mind where people are incredibly popular, incredibly famous, incredibly rich, and they're not very talented, right? I know quite a few people in the music industry, and they talk about plants. Like there are certain musical groups and certain people that were chosen to be popular. So they get chosen, they book these tours, and they pour all this marketing money into it for any number of reasons. And then there are people that are just undeniable. Chris Stapleton, like not a good looking guy, not a handsome fella, had a huge long career as a songwriter in Nashville. And then, I guess I'll put out a solo album, kind of all shucksy. And then what was that, the CMTs or the CMAs or whatever? He goes out there and does those two songs with Justin Timberlake. And they weren't supposed to do two songs, but basically Justin Timberlake comes into the country music world and he goes, I'm not coming and I'm not doing this unless we do two songs. We're going to do one of his songs and we're going to do one of my songs. And then that put Chris Stapleton on a rocket ship because his level of talent and songwriting is just flat out undeniable. So I feel like Joseph, in a way, at some point you could not like somebody. At some point you could wish you got the next opportunity, but it's just like, you're not mad when somebody gets a hit 3-hole over you whenever they're the best hitter on the team. Right. You're just not that disappointed.
Yeah, I wonder how many men got a tear in their eye when Chris Stapleton sang the Star Spangled Banner for the Super Bowl.
Me. I was at your house. I was crying at your house watching that.
I got a little misty myself. I was like, oh man, I don't know why, but it's something about it.
And it is the #1 national anthem of all time.
Ever.
Because what does everyone say is the best?
Roseanne Barr.
She's third, I think.
Whitney Houston?
Everyone says Whitney Houston. She didn't sing it live. That was a recording.
Wow.
She had recorded it previously. So I'm sorry, that doesn't count,
Yeah,
right? It's a
doesn't.
beautiful rendition. Her voice is literally one of the most spectacular voices of all time. But Chris Stapleton delivered the best one of all time. That's what you got.
Have y'all been listening to Oliver Anthony? Have you heard some of his stuff?
He's-
Not lately.
yeah.
This is the guy who sang the
Richmond, North
Richmond, North
Yeah.
Richmond. Yeah, he's great.
He's got some new stuff out too that's on that level. Like it'd be, he's not. You don't look at him and be like, he's a star. You look at him
Yeah.
and you're like,
6'5" ginger
Yeah.
with like kind of a puby beard. Like, no,
Yeah.
it's not.
He's good. When you get deep into his stuff, though, at least for me, it's a little folksy kind of
Yeah.
and a little
Yeah.
twangy, but it is good. Like, I
Yeah.
like him a lot.
One thing is because I had 2 vocal cord surgeries. After the second surgery was successful, I went and did vocal coaching with a vocal coach down at OU. And the cool thing about this guy is he was I literally just forgot what they do, speech therapist or speech language pathologist. Sorry, speech language
that's what
pathologist.
Tiffany does. That's what
Okay.
my wife does. So she would be sad that you forgot what he did, but
Sorry.
that's what
don't-
she used to do. She doesn't do it anymore.
Don't tell Tiff. Sorry, Tiffy.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But he was also a performing opera singer. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what I didn't know is when opera singers perform like around the world and whatever, Italy is kind of a big one, they don't mic them a lot of times. So they've got an orchestra behind them and they don't mic the opera singer because the opera singer needs to be resonant. So I use the word projection. He's like, that's not what it is. You need your voice to fill the room. You need it to boom off the wall. So Grassmeyer has a very resonant voice. He doesn't have to speak loudly, but when he does, it's just booming.
If you watch Greatest Showman, you would see one of the ladies in there
I
does
just-
Oh, the
opera.
Yes. Okay.
You know that.
All right. You know what? Here's the deal. Because I watched Brokeback Mountain with another single guy in his dorm room, and we, if neither
Held
one of us
hands.
liked it, is we didn't do that. We didn't even get close. I think if Kelsey might like it,
Oh,
then
she'd love
I'll
it.
sit down with her
The
and we'll
boys-
watch
the
it.
boys will love
It
it,
can't
yeah.
be worse than Lord of the Rings. So, like, it can't be any worse than that.
And since
No.
you liked Brokeback Mountain so much,
I didn't. I didn't say that.
There is a
You're putting
woman.
words in my mouth.
There is a woman
You're
in
trying
this
to put
movie.
other things in my mouth too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let this stop. I need you to go backwards
This woman,
in this conversation.
she has a beard in this.
So there's a tranny.
Well, no,
she's
she's
a
just
bearded-
a
bearded
she's a
lady.
bearded
She's a
lady.
bearded
Circus.
lady.
She's
How
actually
rude.
a beautiful
How
bearded
rude.
lady.
Yeah.
Not rude.
Gosh.
A woman with a beard.
Don't
I
try to
know
put-
it could have
don't
been
try to
Gal
put her
Gadot,
in a
and I would have been like,
box.
no, we got to shave that thing. What are you talking about?
Gal Gadot. Is
Get
that how
that
you
outta
pronounce her
here.
last name? Godot?
That's Godot. It's not Godot.
Godot.
What are you,
I
a
thought
big
it was.
doof?
I thought it was
Like,
Godot.
come on, man.
There's a
Redneck.
T. Why didn't you pronounce the T?
It's silent.
Oh,
She's
Is it
Jewish.
French?
The T's are silent.
Oh, okay.
Right?
It's not how you pronounce it here in Oklahoma.
No,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. This is
Gal Gadot.
Oklahoma. There's a
I
T
don't-
on there. You say T.
Yeah. We also
go to
combine
Office
a lot
Depot?
of words. Like, which did you? Like, what? Which did you pick? The first one or the
Which
second one?
did you?
Right? There's, your mom and them. Like, oh man, I haven't been down there in a while. How's your mom and them? Right?
So I just got back from Boston. I was in Cape Cod for a wedding, and I had to go to the hospital. And in the hospital, I'm just talking like I normally do. And all of a sudden, the nurse says, military or South. I was like, military South? What the heck do you mean? And I realized it's because I had said ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kept asking me questions, ma'am, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And it caught me off guard. And I was like, oh. And so she immediately knew just because I was saying ma'am, you're either in the military or you're from the South.
Way to go, Adam.
Hey,
Way to
thank
make
you.
us
yeah,
look good,
holding
man.
it down.
Let's
holding
go.
it down. I will say I like Boston a million times more than I like New York.
Oh, yeah.
Both are ran by super lefty blue weirdos. Like, it's not a great place, but Boston feels like a small town.
You know,
And every time I went, I just felt like I was like with family. You know?
I agree. I like Boston a lot. I like Cape Cod. It was the first time I've ever been there. There are 2 people in society that get a pass to say anything. One should be comedians, and number 2 are nurses. Dude, nurses can say freaking anything, and it's okay. I'm in the waiting room, and I hear the nurse from across the way goes, "Oh, you talking about that big ginger? That big ginger that's just over there?" I was like,
Just real bold about
Just
it.
real bold.
Why's
Just
it got to be?
why's it got to be a ginger?
We got enough
Like,
problems.
All these poor redheads out here running around like might not like being called ginger, but those nurses, they just rip. They just go. That's fine.
That is the one thing is when that happens with New Yorkers, a lot of times it can be pretty mean spirited. Because I lived in New York for when I was there working for Major League Baseball in 2012, and like the pace didn't bother me because I'm a fast paced dude. But it's just that people don't have time to care. Like Kelsey was walking across a crosswalk one day, and she doesn't do the slow walk across a crosswalk thing, and a taxi driver bumps her, like she wasn't walking fast enough. right? And I wasn't there, and so I couldn't do the Mexican hat dance on the dude's face. And so it was like he just bumped her, like, come on, let's go. I got places to be. And like again, Boston's got its issues, but like I don't know, the accent's cooler. It's more, it feels more Irish there, right? It's less 5 points, and
Well, now if you go to New York now, it's like you're in a different country.
Oh yeah, it's like
I mean,
Somalia.
It's just anywhere. I mean, everybody.
When's the last time you were there?
Last summer.
Okay, yeah, it's been forever for me.
I like Boston and I like DC. I've never been a big fan of New York, but I like DC too. I'm
Just
a
got
huge,
back from DC and I loved it.
yeah. I
was
love.
great.
I like all the museums and going to the.
Did you go to the Bible Museum?
I haven't been since I've been there.
Museum
been
of
a
the
while.
Bible, I should say.
That's where we went to it, and we got to do a tour with Terry Fakes, who
Shout out
has been
Terry
on the
Fakes.
podcast, and I had a really good time. Actually, Mr. Green showed up and gave us a little tour
Hobby
as
Lobby,
well.
Mr. Green.
How
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah, so that was really neat.
Wait, did he give you a tour of the Museum of the Bible?
Yes, so
Oh, no way.
He came and gave us a little talk, kind of talked to us about some of the stuff going on and vision, and just it was just really cool. Terry works, with him.
Oh.
And so he came and gave that talk, and then he stuck around and was able to give us a tour of some of the things and actually talk about the translation room where his brother's doing a lot of stuff. And then really,
So did you see stuff
really
that wasn't
passionate.
like the rest of the public got to see? Did you get some private tour stuff?
Did they show you the Ark?
No.
They didn't show you the Ten
didn't
Commandments. What
show
about
the-
Joseph Smith's golden apples? Are they there?
There wasn't anything like that. They did. So he walked us through some stuff. He came to dinner, and then that next day, I actually have a really old American flag with 14 stars on it. And we had contacted the Smithsonian before we went, so we did get to go. The same person that curates the Star Spangled Banner actually came and got us into the Smithsonian, took us back to the back to like where they store everything, and they examined this flag right next to pieces of the Star Spangled Banner.
No.
And so we got to see a lot of really cool stuff back in those storerooms.
Did you take pictures?
Yeah.
Are you allowed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
dude. So
that was the coolest inside deal, but it wasn't at the Museum of the Bible.
well, yeah, we're working on some stuff to maybe do some cool stuff with the Museum of the Bible.
Yeah.
So just a little teaser for you guys. But whenever I was done working for Major League Baseball, the main curator, I guess, for Cooperstown had come through our studio in New York City at some point during the season, and he was like the nicest guy. And he's like, "Hey, if y'all ever make it up to upstate New York, I would love to give you a private tour and that kind of thing." And I was like, "Okay, bet." And so there was that big hurricane that hit New Jersey and New York. And so, like, we were in Detroit for the World Series. The Giants had swept the World Series. There were no flights going back into New York because, like, the lower 40 streets of Manhattan were completely without power.
Mike
Right?
Piazza? Mike Piazza
What?
was on that team, right?
No.
You said
this would have been in 2012.
The Giants?
The Mets? Oh,
Did I
thought you
say
said the
Mets?
No,
Did I
you
say
said
the
you
Mets?
said-
Yeah,
you
so
said
the
the
Giants
Giants.
swept the Tigers in
My
Detroit.
bad. Continue. I
That
apologize
was
for the
year
interruption.
Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown. The last guy to make the Triple Crown before, like, what was it? Ted Williams was
Yep.
before that or something like that. Anyway, so this guy's, if you can get up there, great. And so here we are. We're sitting in New York, and we're in one of those apartments, and the apartments don't have central heat and air. It has to be below like 36 degrees before they turn it on for the building, and it got to like 37. And so we're literally sitting there with like multiple pairs of clothes on. We're carrying one candle around, like trying to whatever. And we're like, this is stupid. And so we found out that you could take bus trips to all these different cities that were pretty close. So we took a day trip to Philadelphia because when we got on the bus, there was heat and there was a charger, right? And like we could charge our phones and like, we didn't have to wake anybody up at 2:00 in the morning or anything like that. And then we did a day trip to Boston, went to Boston. And
I'm laughing because this probably makes like a whole class of society more relatable to you, to where you're like, riding on a bus all night isn't all that bad. Like, I get it now.
Yeah, absolutely. But then we rent a car and we're going to drive to Cooperstown, upstate New York. And at this point, I hadn't driven a car in 9 months. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And when you don't drive a car for 9 months,
Start in New York City.
it was, yeah. And we're starting in New York freaking city.
Nice.
And then we're driving, or we may have like got a bus to take us to Albany or something. And then we got a car there or something like that. And so we drive out to Cooperstown, and the guy knew we were coming and all that. It was just me and my wife. And there's nobody there. Like nobody. And there's the different sets and different things like that. And he's like, "Hey, come to the basement." And I mean, I don't know what that means, but it's all the, where they kind of spin the wheel and it moves the shelves and all that. And he proceeded to show me
The
like,
craziest
because he knew I was a big Cardinals fan. And so I got to hold Stan Musial's game worn jersey.
What?
I got to hold, and I'm wearing like Tiffany gloves. I got to hold Stan Musial's bat, greatest St. Louis Cardinal of all time, the most criminally underrated baseball player of all time.
Yeah.
What would
And
you
then-
do to me if I told you I don't know who that is?
What?
Stan Musial.
No, never heard that name in my
Splendid.
life.
No.
Don't know who that is.
which goes to my point. The most criminally underrated baseball player of all time because he played in St. Louis, not Boston or New York.
So whoever this guy is versus Albert Pujols, who's better?
Well, Albert Pujols left. So Sam Musial played his entire career with the Cardinals. So Albert Pujols can, suck a bag of you know what.
But he
right, as far as I go.
But he was there at his prime. Like he was
the first 11 years of Albert Pujols' career is the best 11-year stretch of any person in the history of baseball. Don't at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that his first 11 years were preposterous. But anyway, so I get to hold Sam Musial stuff. I get to hold Babe Ruth's bat. And if you've heard about Babe Ruth's bat, it was basically a log.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think in high school, we were drop 3 when I was in high school. So
like
I swung
30-ounce bat.
Yeah, I swung a 33-30, which was
Right.
huge.
Right.
This bat was over 40 ounces, which, guys, if you know anything about bats, that's an enormous bat.
Jeez.
But then I know we're kind of going into this, but I'm a baseball nerd, right? And so he could kind of tell by some of the things I was saying, some of the questions I was asking, that I kind of knew what I was talking about. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to hand you a bat, and I just want you to tell me what you notice about it." And he hands me Ichiro's bat, from one of his biggest hits or something like that. And so, like every baseball player does, you get the bat, and the first thing you do, you just kind of start moving it around in your hands a lot. And I'm just like, "What?" And he just starts to smile because he's like, I think he's about to get it. I'm like, it feels like all the weight for the barrels at the very end of the bat. At the very end, he's like, precisely. He's like, Ichiro's style was he wasn't doing all this launch angle stuff that we see in modern Major League Baseball. Dudes using torpedo bats and moving the barrel where most of the meat of the bat is closer to the hands. It was all at the end because he was a slap hitter. His body, a lot of times, was already out of the box as he's making contact, almost like a softball player. Because he would slap the ball with pace to the left side of the infield, and he was so fast he would always outrun it to right field. Or he just wanted to basically put a little bit of a slap on it to pop it over the second baseman's head or the shortstop's head. Like that was just his style. He would just spray the ball everywhere so that you couldn't move your defensive alignment to where he was going to go. He wasn't a dead pull hitter. He wasn't trying to hit it to left center all the time. And it was just kind of one of those things. Who knows that about Ichiro's bat, right? The company that made it, Ichiro, like the bat boy or whatever, and any other player that tried to swing that bat, and me,
and Kyle
apparently,
Thompson,
right? And so it's just like, guys, find museum curators and befriend them because like you're going to get to see and experience like some awesome stuff that you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Not to continue going on baseball for too long, but I was recently watching PTI and they were talking about Aaron Judge, and they were talking about his statistics, and I don't know all the statistics and the numbers, but they were giving out some adjusted OPI plus, whatever the heck that is.
OPS plus, yeah.
OPS plus, and apparently Aaron Judge's OPS plus is astronomically higher than anybody else's.
So by the time you guys hear this, we'll be, in the dog days of summer, but his April of this season, I think he ended April with an average around 450. So OPS is
what is the plus part?
I don't understand the plus part. There's a bunch of that stuff that I don't quite understand. But
did I pronounce it right?
It's OPS plus. So OPS, what OPS is, it's a combination of your slugging percentage and your on base percentage. Okay, so if you get on base, if you get hits or get walks, you're going to have a higher on base percentage. And slugging is 1 times the number of singles, plus 2 times the number of doubles, plus 3 times the number of triples, plus 4 times the number of home runs, all divided by your number of at-bats. So the higher slugging percentage you have means you hit a lot of doubles and typically homers. Not a whole lot of guys hitting homers are also hitting triples. And so whereas you have a lower slugging percentage if you're a singles hitter, right? So Ichiro never had a huge OPS or slugging percentage because he was basically getting singles and stealing second base. So effectively he was hitting doubles because he kept swiping bags. But yeah, so what Aaron Judge did in April was one of the most preposterous months in the history of baseball, unexplainable.
I think they said his lifetime OPS plus is like 470, and they said the next closest in the history of baseball was like 417 or 410.
And this guy, and then we'll wrap up our baseball diatribe. So, because Aaron Judge is one of those Yankees you just can't hate, right? Because they're the most hateable franchise maybe in all of sports, but you just can't hate Aaron Judge because he's just a nice guy and whatever. He almost didn't make it to the majors. Like at one point, he was hitting so the Mendoza line is hitting 200. He was hitting like 172 or something in the minors. And here's this enormous guy, good-looking guy, great prospect. They had high hopes for him, and they're like, oh, this guy's just going to wash out. and he breaks the home run record, right? So, you can miss me with Bonds and McGuire and Sosa. He now owns the home run record. They're saying it's the American League home run record. No, he hit 62 home runs in one season. He is the guy, and he's playing in the most specialized time in baseball history.
Right.
Where at Stan Musial back in the day, he's seeing the same pitcher four or five times because that pitcher's throwing 200. 200 pitches in a game.
Right.
Now you got a guy that will see you twice, and then every guy coming out of the bullpen throws 98 with a hook.
So Aaron Judge sounds like he's got some resilience to him, right?
He sure does.
And he reminds me of Joseph.
Oh my gosh! You know what?
From
You're
the
right.
Bible.
Well, won't you look right here?
Right.
We got Joseph. We got the story of Joseph right here
How
in
about
front
that?
of us. Everyone's trying to do their best Grassmeyer. I love it. So we're gonna approach chapter 42 of Genesis in chunks here. So we're just gonna do the first 8 verses. So Adam, since you did such a velvety transition, you get the first 8 verses.
Now Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, and Jacob said to his sons, "Why are you staring at another?" He said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us from that place, so that we may live and not die." Then 10 brothers of Joseph went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, "I am afraid that harm may befall him." So the sons of Israel came to buy grain among those who were coming, for the famine was in the land of Canaan also. Now Joseph was the ruler over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he disguised himself to them and spoke to them harshly.
Let's go ahead and we're going to pause. We're stopping at verse 8 here because we really need to look at what happened here. So Benjamin, we see, is Jacob's new favorite, right? Because Benjamin thinks that Joseph has died. MacArthur pointed out some incredible stuff here with verse 6. This is Joseph's dream coming true, right, guys? You heard us get into it in the forging table with Genesis 37. He had this dream that his brothers would bow down to him, and that's what caused this turn of events in the coat of many colors. But 15 years had passed at this point. Like after he had been put into slavery, he's fully an Egyptian now. Joseph acting like he didn't know them. I mean, they thought Joseph was dead. And think about it, your little brother, I didn't have a little brother, but your littlest sibling, like if you didn't see them for 15 years and they were, a teenager,
right?
Like they may have some features, but again, Egyptians dressed and did their faces in particular ways. It's just such an unbelievable set of circumstances here. And, for Joseph to recognize his brothers, but they didn't recognize him, like the drama of this. Like we talk about movies and all this kind of stuff. Like, what is more dramatic than this?
And not to mention that Jacob is still holding on to this favoritism, right? He had favoritism for Joseph, and now he's got favoritism for Benjamin, all because Joseph and Benjamin are the only two from Rachel.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
Right.
Pretty interesting. Benjamin's the last one, and so he's trying to hold on to that.
So this said that Joseph is 30 at this time, right?
Yes.
So he was about 15 when he was
Yeah,
captured.
it would have been roughly 15
Technically,
years old.
He'd be 37 now, right? Because it said he was 30 when he interpreted the dream. It's at least 7 years later because they've had the 7 years of good, so he'd have to be 37.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But there's I think there's a lot of, this is like in the first year of the famine.
But so when
First year of the famine,
7
when
years
he-
of the, okay,
years of the
plenty.
planet.
Right,
Oh,
right.
yeah, because they sped up
Gotcha.
the story and then they come
Yeah,
back.
okay.
They come back to
Yeah,
it.
so 37-ish.
yeah,
Yeah.
So 30 plus 7
It's 37.
equals 37.
Wait, can you prove it? All right, right.
30
7
plus 7.
No, you didn't mark this one out.
I
You
didn't
gotta
carry
mark
the-
that out.
carry
Okay,
the-
and then the 1.
Have you
Carry the 1.
seen how they teach
you do
kids to
new
do
math?
Have you seen how they teach kids to do? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I cannot
What do they
figure
do?
it out.
Don't try.
Show me.
You will trust me. It's coming, my friend. You've got about 2 years. And the teachers literally tell the kids, don't ask your parents for help because they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And it's true. I don't get it. It's the dumbest thing I've ever
Show me.
heard of.
Show
I
me
don't
right there.
know. I don't know how to do
you know
it,
how to do
Kyle.
it?
No.
I can get.
I know
here's-
that I don't know how to do it. 'Cause whenever they do it in front of me,
It has
I'm
old
like,
math in it
Stop.
anyway.
Here's the
So-
truth. I can get the answer in 2 steps, and the dumb way they're teaching kids, ridiculous,
Takes
horrible
like
way
12.
now, it takes 12 steps to get to the same answer.
Who's the, I can't
What
think of the comedian.
idiot came up with this idea?
Who's a super popular comedian now from Tennessee?
That jokes
Theo-
about this?
Theo
Nate
Vaughn?
Bargatze.
No,
No,
he's
Bargatze.
Louisiana, sorry.
Bargatze talks about the goal of new math is just to see how much paper you can use.
I guess so.
That's the whole thing.
Oh,
I
man,
guess so.
you just keep giving commercials for homeschool.
Okay,
Like,
so
just left
Yeah,
and right.
for sure.
So 37. Okay.
So, what was I going to say though? Oh, so the one part I thought was interesting, and this I can't remember where I read this, but he says to his sons, he's talking about Egypt, right? And he says, "Why do you look at one another?" You can just imagine them like Egypt, like every time they hear that they're like, "Oh yeah, we sold our brother to Egyptian
Oh, that's a
traders."
good
You know what I
point.
mean? That is like that's why we're looking at each other because
Never
you want us
thought
to
of
go
that.
there. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then you mentioned that they're full brothers, and that's why he was his new favorite.
Yeah. The idea, I mean, we really do see this play out to where these guys are struggling so much. What it was Reuben who's the oldest, right?
Yeah.
And so he's the first one he's also the one that slept with his dad's wife at one point. So he's in the doghouse, and we saw him try to get out of the doghouse whenever they were throwing Joseph into the pit, and he was like, "Let's not do this." But you've seen that he's lost all of his influence. Like there's no leadership in the young men, the generation that he's in this family. They're all looking at each other, not knowing what to do. Dad is still having to tell them where to go to do the work and how to solve problems. And you got to think that just has to do with the idea that, again, when they were young, they were shown where they rated in their father's eyes. You know, some of them were sent up front whenever he was going to confront Esau, and some of them were held back to the back. And you've got Joseph and Benjamin that held back, and now you have this whole generation of these guys that just don't work well together. But
I think chronologically, this has to also be after the Genesis chapter 38 with Judah and Tamar. So, we're talking about the brothers. We're talking about Reuben is still not in a good place. Well, what did Judah do? Judah went and lived in Canaan, married a Canaanite woman, did all of these horrible things against God, and then they're still wandering around and having problems.
so I was wondering that. So is that story all before this story, or is that?
I would say it has to be, and we'll get to that. I'll get to the reason why in a minute, because we're going to get to a part to where eventually Judah starts coming around.
Yeah.
And Judah starts changing, and you see a change in Judah, him first.
Right.
And that's why I think it wouldn't make sense in my mind to see that change and see kind of a spark in him. And then all of a sudden he goes back and goes to live in Canaan and marries a Canaanite woman. So I feel like it is chronological. The Judah and Tamar story happened first. Then the famine happens, and then you start seeing Judah figuring things out.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and pick back up. Caleb, read 9 through 17.
And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them, and he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." Through 11?
Through 17.
Oh, gosh. He said to them, "No, it is the nakedness of the land that you have come to see." And they said, "We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, It is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let him bring your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you. Or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in custody for 3 days.
Okay. So the thing that's interesting here is swearing by the life of Pharaoh. That's a huge deal. Like this is apparently this is an oath, swearing to someone that fancies themselves a deity. Like this is a really big deal. Some people read this as him, worshiping Pharaoh by saying something in his name and not in God's name, but that's not really a good read. But 7 through 11, if we go back up a little bit, Joseph, the Reformation Study Bible pointed this out. I thought it was great. Joseph is trying to figure out if his brothers are sincere, right? And so, a quick pardon, oh my gosh, it's my brothers, I forgive you, blah, blah, here's all that, wouldn't lead to true repentance, right? And so he's testing them. He's making life more difficult on them, but not with any intent to make life hard on them, right? He's not trying to get even. He's not trying to get back at them. He's just trying to test them to be like, hey, are they legitimately changed?
I do struggle with that a little bit on the, is he getting revenge? Is he wanting, because that's what I would want after my brothers had done all that to me. Like, I'm going to make your life miserable for a while. Like, this is going to suck for you. And I don't really think that's what his intention was. That's what I would want to do. But I do think his intention was to test them and see, have they changed their ways? Are they different?
Well, he really wanted to see his younger brother. I mean, you see that whenever he shows up later on. He's moved by it in such a way, because you got to think again, like that is the only one that was his real brother, and that was the only one that didn't throw him into slavery. That's the one relationship that he had, that he has always dreamed of having that relationship back.
And did they do the same thing to Benjamin that they did to him?
Yeah.
That had to have been on his mind. Like, I see all the brothers. Where's
Where's
Benjamin? Yeah, so it's just kind of like, that's a further test to be like, what happened?
Yeah, and he's probably playing it out as well as, I wonder why they would be here without Benjamin. And he's playing out, I bet Dad is really protective of Benjamin. No telling what they told, because he didn't know what they said to the father about him. You know, he didn't understand the story that said, we took your cloak, we put blood on it, and we brought it back to Dad and told him you died, which was crazy for the fact that, you know, the generational sin of the father killing a lamb to cover his skin to make himself seem like his brother, and then the same thing with them. And so I don't know. I think he's really investigating what's going on here.
And I think it makes sense. Why is my brother not here? And you know, it's the one brother of his that he shares with his father and his mother, and the one that probably shares the most likeness to him. And so, Kyle, I think your point makes a lot of sense to me. Like, did they do to my brother what they did to me?
When he's a very wisdom-filled guy, you know?
They were probably pretty close in age. I mean, like, there's a lot of just commentaries that I read just saying that they were saying that Benjamin's maybe in his mid to late 20s at this point. So maybe even 30, you know, so they're pretty close in age compared to the rest of them. But I think they're talking about in verse 11, we're honest men, you know, and then the very next they're saying, and one of our brothers is no more, you know.
And
So
yeah, there's a lot of consternation
Right.
here with kind of what they're all processing. And again, Russ, you're right. Like, he doesn't know what they've told their father, but he knows what he's experienced up to this point. And he also knows they don't recognize me. And we see throughout the rest of the next few chapters, they don't even have a hint. Right. So just a little bit of fast forwarding, whenever they go to the table for a meal, he puts them in birth order. And they're amazed at how he could just do that. And it's like, I mean, they had no clue who it was.
Well, have you ever seen somebody that you know pretty well, but you saw them in a setting that you did not expect to see them?
Sure.
Yeah,
And you're kind of, even if you know them pretty well, you kind of double take and think, is that no? Because when your mind doesn't expect that somebody would be in that position or at that scene, it's really hard for your mind to connect to it, especially if there's been any change. So
It's like seeing one of your teachers, like at Walmart when you're a kid.
I thought you were going like Varsity Blues or something.
No, not Varsity Blues. I was thinking like the first time I saw like my ninth grade English teacher, Mr. Adair, you know, in like Walmart. He's wearing like shorts and loafers, and you know that wasn't. So that's kind of where my head was.
Yeah,
what were you thinking?
My bad.
Okay,
Just a reference.
what is going on here?
Yeah.
What is I feel like y'all are trying to torpedo this. Every single one of these. No. Okay, we're just gonna go on. We're gonna give you a chance to redeem yourself. You can keep talking,
Bring it
but
on.
now we're gonna have a Bible come out of your mouth and not that filth.
All right.
So let's do verse 18 through 25.
All right. On the third day, Joseph said to them, said to them, said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine to your household. And bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. Then they said to one another, in truth, we were guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we did not listen. That is why this distress has kind of come upon us. To what?
Through 25.
And Reuben answered them, did I not tell you not to sin against the boy, but you did not listen? So now there comes a reckoning for his blood. They did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. Then he turned away from them and wept, and he returned to them and spoke to them. And he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to replace every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. This was done for them.
I mean, make this a movie. I mean, then he turned away from them and wept. So the note that I put after reading that is this had to be soul level emotional exhaustion, right? Because he sees some contrition. He sees Reuben like, we shouldn't have done that. And this is 15 years later and it's still there. Because again, when people freak out and do something like that, where, I mean, you see these stories, these murder mysteries and all that. Like somebody kills someone, they weren't planning to kill them, and then they just kind of freak out, bury them in a shallow grave, and they leave a myriad of evidence behind. It's just one of those situations like they didn't really think this through, and they're never going to live that down. They might not ever see the inside of a jail cell. Like my buddy Jay Warner Wallace, like he's a cold case detective. And I mean, they were getting people 30, 40 years after a murder. They're sitting at home watching a Laker game, and they don't know that the knock on the door is the last knock they're ever going to hear, in a residence of their own because they've been found. But that's something you don't just get through and get past.
Were you talking about that the other day that you were saying something about, it was either you or I'd heard somewhere else that people, when they get in that situation, that a lot of times they're relieved that they got caught?
Yes.
Like that they just have this sense of like, I'm glad that this is over.
I can't remember the context. It wasn't a Jay Warner Wallace thing, but there are people that you live your entire life looking over your shoulder. Is today the day? Is today the day? And then they get caught and they're just like, oh, thank goodness. Like they don't want to go to prison. They don't want to sell their bodies to survive or for cigarettes or whatever. But like the torture of constantly having to be on, constantly moving around, changing your appearance, not letting it slip your old name, like any number of things. Like, yeah, it's just absolutely emotionally exhausting. And I mean, Joseph here has to just been like, it says he turned away, and this means he left the room. He didn't turn away and then come back and he was good.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he had to go reset. He had to go resettle himself.
I didn't even think about it till it came up right here, but when they talk about in verse 23 that there was an interpreter, that they're not even speaking the same language.
But why did they need an interpreter? Joseph should have understood the language that they were speaking.
No, Joseph understood, but he was not speaking Hebrew.
He was
right. They were.
He was keeping the con going. I mean, honestly, that's what he was playing the part of an Egyptian.
Right.
And he didn't want them to know that he understood Hebrew because, again, make this a movie. It worked out perfectly. He played the dummy so that he could hear what they were saying in their own language that wasn't being interpreted, and then he could make a judgment.
I think I know where you're coming from.
I see it now.
Because it was like, why does he need an interpreter there? He knows what they're saying.
He didn't need it.
But yeah, it's like
It's
they
part of the
did
ruse.
not know that Joseph understood them because they're having to talk to the interpreter who's telling this random fancy looking Egyptian guy with nice eyebrows something.
Right. They thought they were having that conversation
among
in private.
themselves. Yeah.
And do we know that the interpreter knew that Joseph knew Hebrew? Probably not. Again, he's fully assimilated to Egyptian culture at this point.
But that to me too is like, it just speaks like how close, like we were just talking about, the guilt and the shame was to the surface. It's like the wanting to be caught thing. I mean, that's why. It's because you can't think of anything else.
We sort of glazed over in verse 20, and there is a part where Joseph says, and you will not die. So just to be clear about how dangerous this was and how angry he was and how mad he was at these guys, there's probably significant tension in the room because he can tell and he can read the room that they're worried that he's going to kill him. Like, sure enough, you do this and you won't die. But that also sort of indicates, like, if you don't, I might kill you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He definitely overdoes the pressure. I mean, from his first conversation with them, he talks to them, what does it say? Not abruptly, but roughly. He spoke to them roughly.
And that's the first time we see in all of Scripture that he acts that way.
Yeah. So he is, it sounds like he is intentionally trying to put the pressure on, like an interrogation, be like, I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm going to be really heavy-handed, and we're going to see where they turn whenever they start squealing.
Yeah,
we're going to see
that's
what
verse
they
7.
go to. Verse
Verse 7 spoke roughly to them, and that's the beginning of us as the narrator giving us an idea of like, okay, Joseph is trying to test his brothers and figure out, kind of where they're at.
They have to.
Go ahead.
They've got to feel pretty relieved, also because it went from they were, I guess there's 10 of them there, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 9 of them were going to be in prison, and one of them was going to go get the brother, and then he switched it on them.
That's true.
So it's like, okay, we need to take advantage of this.
I don't remember in his story when he got put in the well or the cistern. What was Simeon's role in that? Do y'all remember? I remember Reuben's.
I mean, 37.
I remember Reuben's, and I remember Judah, but I don't remember Simeon's. But I just saw I meant to look that up, like what his role was, because he's the one that
I don't think his name even.
This is in 37, Genesis 37:19. It just refers to they, and I see Reuben. So it says, they said to one another, here comes the dreamer. I love that part. Here comes the freaking dreamer. Here comes the dreamer. Now then, come and let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we will say a wild beast devoured him. And then it continues because Reuben's the oldest. Reuben continues to talk, And then
Jude's the one that comes up with the idea to sell him while Reuben's gone. But so Simeon's not specifically
No,
named. I just wonder if there was any reference to why he kept Simeon in the birth order or whatever, because you would have thought that he would have kept either the youngest or the oldest in that group. I don't know, was Simeon could have been the youngest of the ones that came.
Yeah, not sure.
maybe. I don't know.
Someone at home, tell us,
Wasn't
fill in the
mentioned.
gaps for us. Adam, or who read last?
I read last.
You read last, so Adam, 26 through 38 of Genesis 42.
So they loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed from there. As one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money, and behold, it was in the mouth of his sack. Then he said to his brothers, "My money has been returned, and behold, it is even in my sack." And their hearts sank, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?"
They're just clueless.
This is not good.
Yeah,
This is bad.
through 38.
Oh, 38. When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly with us and took us for spies in the country. But we said to him, 'We are honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, son of our father. One is no longer alive. The youngest is with our father today in the land of Canaan.' The man, the Lord of the land, said to us, 'By this I will know that you are honest men. Leave your brothers with me and take grain for the famine of your household and go. But bring your youngest brother to me, that I may know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will give your brother to you, and you may trade in the land.' Now it came about, as they were emptying their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were dismayed. Their father Jacob said to them, 'You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and you would take Benjamin. All of these things are against me.' Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, 'You may put my two sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return him to you.' But Jacob said, 'My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should befall him on the journey you are taking, then you will bring my gray hair down to Sheol and sorrow.'"
Yeah, so Reuben's offer was rejected, but we see a little bit later that another one gets accepted. But yeah, not interested in that. You have to wonder Reuben's motivation for putting up the lives of his two sons to make a point, and because you could not guarantee safe passage to and from, and so that's a lot. That's obviously your progeny to put them on the chopping block in case Benjamin doesn't come back. Yeah. So that's kind of a rough one.
But it is rough, but again, Jacob is still showing that he has favorites. He's willing to give up on Simeon because remember, Simeon's in Egypt. He's bound. He's in prison. He's not in a good spot. Jacob's not willing to sacrifice anything or risk anything to get Simeon back.
Right.
That seems strange to me.
Well, it shows that there's a major distrust that has been built there over what happened to Joseph. He remembers the last time that he sent a son to go with his other sons, and he remembers that they didn't take care of him. But it also implies that I don't know if he doesn't trust the story or if he just generally doesn't trust them to get the job done. And again, like a little earlier, it alluded to the idea that they're just standing around looking at each other. So it would make sense that he's like, man, I've got these 10 boys here that just can't get it together and they don't know what to do. I'm not going to send them Benjamin to get back Simeon, who put himself in that position.
Perhaps this is a cultural issue, or maybe Jacob's too old to make the trip, but I would think if I was in that situation, like, I'm freaking going to Egypt and trying to get my son back.
Right.
He's got to be too old. You would just think, and the travel had to have just been really, really rough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking too, just about the contrast between like Jacob's attitude when he's kind of woe is me, everything's going wrong, versus like Joseph's attitude. Mm-hmm. I mean, the resilience and the way that Joseph embraced the difficulty of his entire life, the last 20 years. I mean, compared to what Jacob's going through right now is actually, it's pretty little, Right. I mean, yeah, he lost his son Joseph. He may have lost his other son Simeon, but I mean that doesn't even compare. And then the attitude that he's taken compared to Joseph is pretty stark difference.
When you look at this and you think about the generational sin too, is that it's crazy to see people fall into the same pattern that their fathers did or whatever it was. I think on one of the podcasts here lately, y'all were talking about the idea of like most of the time abusive men were abused or something along those lines. The idea that Jacob understood what it was like to be the not favorite son, and to be struggling with that all of his life, and then, manipulating his dad and realizing how that tore them apart and things. And he's still doing it. He's still from the very get-go picking a favorite, and then that favorite's gone. Okay, I'll pick my second favorite. And he's got nobody to blame really but himself of what's going on here.
The favoritism thing is like it just will not get away from him. Right. It's constant over and over again.
When you just think about it, think about most of the old men in your life that are set in their ways. Like, can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like, yeah, this is par for the course. Like, this makes total sense. Like, a lot of people have really, this has just kind of been their life. And so they're just going to lean into it. Yeah. I had a guy ask me recently, and like, because his dad wasn't finishing well, longtime Christian, but just not really finishing well, just kind of basically sitting around ready to die. And he's like, what can I do to snap him out of this and, get him to serve and do all that? I'm like, nothing, literally nothing. Like, he is choosing to act out in this way, and you can encourage and you can take away, roadblocks and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you can't do anything. There's just no point to it. Yeah. Anything else as we wrap up 41 and 42? Going once, going twice. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Come back here next time where we're going to dig into just Genesis 43. So come ready to discuss and listen to a discussion about Genesis 43. But before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. We've got a Crossway starter set for the forging table. So there's 5 amazing books on there you can get at a 50% discount. Go to the show notes and check that out. Also in the show notes, we got a link to where you can get the Logos Bible software at a discount. That is the most powerful Bible software on planet Earth. And we are a donation-based ministry. So Undaunted.Life/donate. That's where we have guys coming on to do, $20 a month, $35 a month, something like that, to support us in our mission to equip men around the globe to push back darkness. Hop on board and be a donor. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.